everyone. I'm Dr. Olena Berezovska, and we have another podcast. As I see by your reaction on my YouTube channel and also on the website of International Positive Psychology Association, we have a great support of viewers. Thank you very much. And I have a very unique speaker and my guest today, which you know already if you're following me on YouTube channel and also on the website of IPPA. It's special guest because with Erich, we started to do the podcast, a series of podcasts, and he was my first guest, and now he's coming again. And I'm going to introduce Erich just in a few seconds. Hi, Erich.
Hello, Lena.
So when we had this first podcast, you were in Switzerland, and now you're in United States, traveling across the ocean. And it's nice to have you at my podcast. And I'm going to introduce you to some people who actually never seen you before. And we're going to discuss very interesting topic, and I'm going to tell a little bit later. So let me introduce Dr. Erich Steinbock from Switzerland and United States. He's a distinguished professor at the Swiss Hotel Management School in Leysin, Switzerland, and also he's a consultant has extensive career in hospitality industry. Previously, he was regional vice president and managing director at Rosewood Hotels and Resorts in Saudi Arabia, and also managing director at Carlyle Hotel in New York City. Also, he spent all his career at Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, including general manager and also global vice president of food and beverages. And he graduated in Iowa State University with PhD on emotional intelligence competencies for success in early hospitality careers. And in last podcast, we were discussing this topic, emotional intelligence competencies in hospitality careers. And we didn't finish our plan of topics we would like to discuss. And this topic even more interesting, I think, because we are going to talk about future Erich's book on happy retirement and successful retirement. And I'm glad that you started to write this book. So let's introduce your book. Let's introduce the name of the book and what you're going to write about, and the principles you're going to use in description of happy, successful retirement. Welcome, Erich.
Well, Olena, thank you very much for the very nice introduction. I really appreciate this, and I'm happy to be back on your podcast.
Me too.
I joined the International Association of Positive Psychology a few months ago. And so I'm taking advantage of looking at previous podcasts and previous recordings. And I came across Dr. Luthen's work. It was quite a few years ago. He wrote the book on psychological capital, or short PsyCap.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of rang a bell with me because, so often we talk about psychological capital when in our work life. And the book is also written for organizations. But then I realized that the whole thing applies, the same principles apply to life after retirement. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I just mentioned this to my daughter just a few minutes before I came on, and she says, "What do you mean? What is retirement?" And that's a good question, because I don't know if I can answer that question, because the perception of retirement could be very different to different people. But if I use the principles of Dr. Luthen's in his book, where he has a acronym HERO, which stands
Mm-hmm.
for hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism, we take those resources from our academia, from going to school, to crossing the bridge to the real world, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
may be. And then, but we also have to cross again another bridge when should we not say retire? Let's say leave one opportunity for another one. And I had a career in hospitality, It took me to many countries in several continents. And because the nature of our business is so that we relocate often. As a matter of fact, my wife and I moved 28 times.
Wow. It's a
Yes,
lot.
I don't argue anymore where to hang the pictures. But it is very common to have going away parties. It usually is stayed in the same company, and we call them fond farewell parties. And you were looking forward to the next big job. It was usually attached with a promotion, either the same job in a big operation or a bigger job in a smaller operation. So you're always looking forward to this next big step.
Yeah.
And when I had the final fond farewell party, when I decided to leave the hospitality industry, it felt like it was my wake. It was, the question was, what's going to happen now? Now, I was healthy, I was financially stable, I have a good family, but there was this uncertainty. And that's a sort of it's very uncomfortable. And I was very fortunate that shortly after retirement, I watched a documentary movie with Dr. Erich Shalom, who was a professor, and he may be still teaching at Stanford University. I think he's professor emeritus at Stanford University.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote the famous book When Nietzsche Wept, but many other works. And as
Mm-hmm.
they interviewed Dr. Yalom in this movie, he said, in our young life, and I'm paraphrasing where he was paraphrasing Schopenhauer, in our young life, we burn as hot as the sun. We have energy. We want to excel. Our sex drive is strong. We want to achieve, and so on. And then as we get older, this energy sort of flattens out. And as we get into our retirement age,
Mm-hmm.
we wonder what's going to happen now. It is sunset, and we're getting sort of concerned. But then night comes, and the stars come out, and you get to see things you never had the time and the perspective to see during an entire career. And that
You're
sort
right.
of motivated me to move on.
Many people afraid of retirement, because whenever I talk to some friends, even people who are much older than me, I think they're afraid to retire because they think they're gonna be alone, not needed, and they don't know how they're gonna spend their own time, not going to work every day as they did. And the medical statistics shows that we have a very high level of cardiovascular events, serious one, right after retirement. And it shows like people really stressed, even if they're ready to retire, but they're really stressed because they finally have a lot of free time and they don't know how to use it and how to live. And the topic we are discussing, I think, is very important for those people who close to retirement and who wants to know how to retire happy and how to utilize the dreams and time and hobbies and whatever. And you use a quite interesting acronym HERO. When I read it, I said, "You are my hero. You are my hero." So it's
You.
nice. It's nice to say in this way, because it's lift your energy and emotions, like to be a hero when you retire, not just like be lonely person that nobody needs you. And it's perfect time to start even some, like would say, business or hobby or new relations and whatever you want, if you don't look at the retirement like the end of your life. So let's continue. I'm sorry for interrupting, but your conversation is very interesting, so I let you talk more.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But let's go back to HERO, the
Yes.
acronym HERO. Hope doesn't need to diminish after sunset.
Mm-hmm.
Most know the difference between wishful thinking and realistic hope at that life stage. Realistic hope is a positive motivational state based on interactively derived sense of a successful agency. That's according to Dr. Luthans. But when we are happier when we do not place less importance on goals, because our life domains change. So, for example, when we age, we become more risk adverse. However, a well thought of if-then plan will help us a lot. We also need to take the opportunity to explore oneself, to improve and motivation. Now we have the time to do so. And maybe it's time we didn't have before. The second letter in the word hope, or one of the letters, the last letter, is E for efficacy. Mm-hmm. See, during our career, you will see efficacy stays strong, we grow, we apply what we experience in the workplace. When we can do that in other endeavors, when we can take that knowledge and pass it on, and that's what I'm doing now by teaching and seeing the young people maybe benefiting from one of the many mistakes that I made, and if I can reach a few of them, sharing some of the failures, it may help them cross the bridge from academia to the workplace. Our own efficacy in other endeavors obviously declines. I was an athlete. I was a really good skier at one time, and I would always look for the steepest, longest runs. Well, now my skiing abilities have declined, so I look for the runs that are not so steep. And when the ability meets the challenge, if we can figure that out, where we're just challenged enough, or we just have enough ability to meet right there, we can still experience flow in the same endeavor. Or, as many of my friends have done, they pick up new sports where they can get better.
Yeah, like golf.
If you knew, and there's been, I just read a statistic yesterday, there are 35 million pickleball players in America.
Wow.
Now, this has only happened over the last few years. And, it's those baby boomers that once played tennis. And now they pick pickleball. It also has more relationship building. It's a more interactive sport. And they get better at it every day because it's new and their bodies can absorb the shocks that you may not be able to withstand anymore from playing tennis. So if we pass on our knowledge and if we find ourselves improving in some way, we will continue to increase our efficacy. We also need to find meaning in all this. And we all know about Dr. Seligman's PERMA acronym, M standing for meaning, but just recently I heard a podcast with Dr. Laura Santos, where Dr. Seligman actually suggested to change the word meaning to matter. And if we find somewhere, we will flourish if we find somewhere where we still matter at any age. Now, we have to be careful because there is an abundance of organizations looking for help. And my gosh, my wife is one of those. She will volunteer for anything, and I'm not quite as vigilant about it. But if I go and volunteer somewhere, and if I go there and I don't really contribute much, and I'm sure many of us have been to that, you go to an event, you help out, and you spend most of the time just standing there, and you wonder if they really needed you. We have to be careful that we don't do these things just to say to ourselves, well, I've done something good. We have to identify, did it really matter what I did? And if it didn't, maybe we have to find some other way or another organization where we can really, really matter. Resilience in the word hero stands up when we're looking for it, and from an engineering perspective. The matter goes back to the original stage after it has been changed to another state. In most of our cases, we're actually better than resilient. We experience post-traumatic growth. And can we still experience post-traumatic growth? Can we still have failures and learn from them in retirement? And yes, but we can't do it by passively coping and reactively adapting. Our happiness does not increase when our environment we find is unfriendly or boring. There will be risks from which we cannot shelter, and nevertheless, we can still cope, recover, and flourish at any age. much in the word hero. Of course, the last sentence, last letter is O. What has been written about optimism, on happiness and longevity. Often optimism is misconstrued for unrealistic pipe dreams. However, realistic and flexible optimism does not fare simply better because they're more cheerful and maintain a positive outlook. People who have that optimism exhibit fundamental different coping mechanism from pessimists. Realistic optimism is not a feel-good, elusive ego boost. It requires self-discipline, planning for contingencies, and consistent preventive care. And probably that preventive care is what we need to do at an older age even more than before.
Yeah.
And the other part that will help that realistic optimism is develop that sense of forgiveness, have a really strong sense and know this is the time when we can reach out to somebody that maybe we've crossed paths with in our past and say, this has been bothering me. I don't think I treated you well at that point. I just had a recent example. There's a gentleman who is a pretty high up position in Las Vegas in one of the large casino hotels. And I worked with him at one time, and he was the general manager of a hotel, and I came in from the corporate office, but I had something else to do, and I never even said hello to him when I was staying at the hotel. And I heard through others that he had shared the idea that here comes this corporate guy, stays at my hotel, doesn't even say hello. And this was 25 years ago. And it's bothered me ever since. So just recently, 2 weeks ago, I was in Las Vegas and I looked him up. And I said, I need to apologize to you what happened that day. And, he pretended like he didn't remember, but I know he did.
I'm sure he
remembered. It's just a wonderful moment. I had to apologize, and he most certainly forgave me, even if he did not afterwards say, yeah, you were a real jerk.
When you said about baby boomers, and I know that I'm the last year of baby boomers in 1964, and I was surprised when I looked through the names of these periods in humans' life. Like we are baby boomers, and we coming from silent era, population, they say, different periods, and then was before lost population or lost like we call, and then now we have Zoomers, we have was looking through this description and definition of different groups of people who were born for the last 150 years. And baby boomers, actually, they are revolutionary in many ways. They're not like other groups of population, which is interesting. And we still active. Say, what I see, that now so many people, like retired people, they're not working anymore, and they don't do regular jobs, but they are influencers. Look at this, even like Instagram, Facebook, on Twitter, on anywhere. People of our generation, they don't want to give up. They want to be active. They are popular in fashion. They're popular in writers, like photographers, like just name it, right? And it means that it's a huge possibility to express yourself, to continue express yourself. And if you have free time because you're retired, right? So it's a perfect time to, like you said, give this knowledge and your own knowledge and experience to other people. Start teaching, or even like a few hours per week, doesn't matter. Start giving something to younger generation, and be alive all the time. Be alive in spite of health problems, in spite of some other problems you can face, because with age we facing some problems, and what you're doing, you try to show people through this book you're working on, that we never give up on retirement as a sentence, like a prison for us. We continue to live, and we continue to enjoy our life. So retirement could be very happy, and just accept it how it is. Of course, we're not gonna run like very fast, like we're running before. but still, it's amazing what you're doing, and that's why I have a pleasure always to talk to you, because you even inspired me. Even I'm still not retired officially, but I have a dream to retire. And then when people ask me, what are you gonna do when you retire? And I said, I have a lot of things to do. I write more books. I will do art. I will paint. I will travel. I will play with my grandchildren, and probably I'll survive and be playing with my great grandchildren. You never knows. So I have a lot of plans for future, at least for 50 years ahead. This is my plans.
Well,
Yeah.
retirement planning needs to start at an early age.
Yeah.
Just like a financial retirement plan, we also have to have a retirement for our identity, for our pursuits, our life goals, and so on. And the worst thing we can have is that all the goals have been met. There has to be
Mm-hmm.
something out there that's still there. So for me, it was great. It just worked very well because I started teaching already when I was working. So the transition was not as difficult. But one thing is I found is that after that sunset, a life of authenticity takes a little less effort,
Uh-huh.
because we can benefit from shedding possessions that we really never needed, moving into smaller living spaces
Yeah.
without worrying about reference points of how big the house of the neighbor is, or worrying about the reference points of our peers and our bosses' lives. Eventually, we can land in a space which Jean-Paul Sartre defined as authenticity, which is representing the absence of self-deception or being true to who you are as an individual. I think that's pretty well said, and we can't we sometimes we can't be really that authentic self when we're in the workplace,
Yeah.
because there is so much outside influence. There's so much extrinsic motivation where our autonomy falls along the wayside. So after letting go of that job and all its related attributes, we now can be free to be truly mindful.
I appreciate that you mentioned about planning of retirement. It's interesting that I was thinking that we don't have anything around, like even in psychology, even like about planning what you're gonna do after you retire, like on retirement. Like you said, yeah, we plan to build the business, we plan to have financial kind of help and success. We always planning something for future, but hardly we plan for a retirement period. And maybe it's a minus that people think when they retire, they kind of like already like ballast, like some kind of like not even useful part of population that actually doesn't bring anything positive in a future generation's life, which is not right. And maybe we should create more, I would say, like not courses, but something more valuable in a way of preparing to retirement, and start talking, especially our generation, like start talking more about life like when we retire. Again, nobody uh, look at this part of life, that we live longer. So that's why we live longer in retirement period. So it's sometimes 20, 30 years, not just like, like before, couple years and that's all. And it means we have to fill these years with some activity, with something that brings us pleasure, but not staying at home alone and crying and in depression, and then dying because of cardiovascular problems, some kind of heart attack or whatever, stroke, because we becoming miserable and unhappy, depressed, with a lot of health problems, and then we blaming that, like this is like our kind of life we didn't deserve because we were such a good people when we were active and working, right? And that's the point. We need to start working on a retirement now, a couple years before we retire, and then smoothly go into this another life without tragic moments and dramatic moments that we accept this even post-traumatic syndrome, that we, yes, that we are not happy. And as you said, as you actually wrote in your book, 40% of people like elderly people have this post-traumatic reaction comparing to 10% much younger generation, right? When they dealing with the stress. And this is another kind of alarm that we need to talk about retirement and plans for retirement and teach people how to make these plans and be yourself. That's I really like that you start writing these books, because we don't have too many books about this. We have how to be
Well,
successful in your life, but not
I
how to be
think that
successful. Yeah,
I think
go ahead.
just like we plan financial retirement, we're very specific. I think a lot of people have dreams, hopeful wishes and dreams for retirement, but we're not specific enough.
Yeah.
With financial plans, we have a target and we've got to go afterwards. And then we have an if-then goal. And we are either risk adverse or we're not risk adverse. And we plan, if we do it well, it can be pretty well planned. The rest of the life, we don't plan that well. Yes, we have wishes. Oh, yes, I will play a lot of golf, but when the time comes, I know at one point I was thinking of retiring in a golf community, and I used to play quite a bit of golf, and on the weekends it was always hard to get a tee time. But then I realized if I don't have to fight for my tee time and the golf course is empty, it's really not that much fun. Not for me anyway. So one needs to plan the other part of retirement, the non-financial part, just as well, with the same tools that our goal setting has for financial planning. Because I was teaching, I had already a plan to continue to teach. And then as I got into teaching, well, then other goals happened. And I got very much involved in this emotional intelligence research. And I finally, at the age of 71, received my PhD. I was the oldest guy on stage, including the professors. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. There was only one problem. There was this, okay, what now? Well, thank goodness I realized that the science of well-being is really interesting to me too. So
I said, maybe I'll get my PhD when I retire, and I still have time, I said, because for me, it's not so important. It's just a title. It's just like, because I know who I am. And as you said, when we come into this age, we don't care what other people like talk about us and say about us, because for me, it's more important what the closest friends, what closest people whom I love, how they accept me, how they see me, and what they think about me. And again, I'm not asking about the thoughts, especially what do you think about me. I usually ask, what do you think about this project I want to start to doing or whatever. So for me, it's more important about something that I'm doing to get some advice than what do you think about me, because they know who I am. They're my friends forever. That's another point. And again, like, it's even if you don't have friends, even if you don't have any books written, or it doesn't matter, you can be very successful at other things, like help people to learn something and help people to be successful, which is like, never give up on your retirement. Never like put some kind of like red line and says, this is era before retirement, this is era after retirement. It's completely different. It's not like before. I think we should be grateful for what we have, and also grateful for this knowledge, about this wisdom we got through the life. And as you said, be optimistic and never lose hope for something we would like to have or achieve. And it's amazing that we talk about this, because finally we can be more open, our generation, to future generations. So look at us, we continue to live and have fun. Right.
yeah, I used to be walking the streets with anti-war slogans and maybe smoking pot, and then we sold real estate, and now we play pickleball, but it's still the same person.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I also look at my friend, she's 72, and she decided to get a pilot license. So at 70
Wonderful.
years old, she started like
Oh,
learning,
that's
going
wonderful.
So she got a pilot license, and her friend and a teacher actually, the pilot instructor, they would travel and they were flying to another even island somewhere in Canada to have dinner in a beautiful restaurant, and it was another dream. So I said, everybody, are you crazy to fly like 200-300 kilometers or whatever just to get to go there and have a dinner? This is fun. You're flying there, and I'm like, she was a pilot, and then I'm flying back, but also it's 3 hours of beautiful conversation. This is like, when when this is joy of life and enjoying of life, and I said, it's great. So what is next? As she said, next it's probably more golfing. But now what she's doing, she's helping in organizing these summer events like festivals, this art shows, market shows, because she likes to bring people together. She likes to help. And I'm going to have on the 3rd of June the art show. So she said, count on me. I'm coming early morning. I'm going to help you to put like everything for display. And I'm going to stay with you at least half a day. And it's nice that she's so active, and she encouraged me to do and encourage me to enjoy life. So I'm very grateful that I'm surrounded by people who never see the end of the life, even if she has some health problem, even somebody has, even I have health problems sometimes. It's never the end. Like, today you feel not so good. Tomorrow you're full of energy. You go in and see other people, which is amazing. Or you're writing book, or you're painting, or you're doing something, but you enjoy it, which is wonderful. Our podcast is coming to the end, and I know it's not like it's endless theme, it's endless topics, because we continue to live even when we retire. And what would you like to say? Just like some short message summarizing our conversation, but I'm sure that your book would be interesting. So follow us, follow me, my podcast, and follow us on IPPA website, because I'm sure we will be introducing your book soon. And like the entire book written and published. And I will be encourage you all the time. I will be popping you like,
Well,
the book is ready.
I've just started the outline, so it will be a little while before we see a
You
finished
never
product.
know.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, like it takes me like sometimes okay, I'm gonna write this book, and then the publishing house calls me and they say we need this type of book, like for this, like with this title. Can you do it? But we need short in 2-3 months. But then I see and think, actually, yeah, I can do it. It's not a problem. It's interesting topic. And then I'm like energized, like working, and I like writing, and whatever I do with pleasure and with love. And then it goes so easy. When you do it with fun, with joy, I'm telling you, it's so easy to create. Even this podcast, everything, like even the to invite people for my podcast. I just like do it with big pleasure. And look what we have just for this short period of life. How many wonderful people came and talk, and we will continue this way. So I'll be encouraging you all the time. Okay.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
And if you need my opinion, you can send me parts, and then I'll be giving my opinion. Very honest one. Very honest one. If it's
I will
easy to
reach out
read.
to you. Thank you for offering that.
Okay, so thank you very much, Erich, for coming again to this podcast. And I hope we'll see you again. You will tell us more about some chapters of your books, what kind of discoveries you have regarding happy retirement, and maybe new advices, new knowledge you got from other publications. Yeah, and I'll see you when I see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lena. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.